The great hall of the alien city was filled with whispers, the kind of whispers that carried both fear and excitement. At the center of the stone floor stood the cage. A cage so large that it reached the ceiling. Inside it, the beast moved, its massive body like a shadow carved from nightmare. Chains rattled against its thick limbs, glowing red with energy restraints. Every alien eye in the room avoided looking at it for too long, as if a single stare would invite death. They called it the Devourer, a monster that had once destroyed entire villages with its rage. Its mouth was filled with jagged teeth. Its glowing eyes burned like twin suns. To the council, it was nothing but a cursed animal unworthy of mercy. Tonight, they had gathered to decide its fate, sacrifice. They said, that was the only answer. The alien elders stood tall on their high seats, their voices echoing across the chamber. The beast has killed. It has no soul, no heart. It must be destroyed before it breaks free again. One of them declared. The crowd murmured their agreement, but not all of them were convinced. Fear controlled them more than reason. At the far side of the hall, a human walked slowly into view. His boots echoed on the stone floor, his calm steps drawing attention from every corner. He was tall, his shoulders broad, his face unreadable, unlike the aliens. He did not look away from the cage. His eyes met the beast's eyes and held. The room fell silent. Who dares walk so close? An alien guard shouted, pointing his spear. The human raised his hand gently. My name is Daniel, he said. His voice was steady, carrying across the chamber without force but with weight. I was sent here to observe, but now I see something different. The elders frowned. Different? What do you see? A monster chained. A killer restrained. Do you not smell the blood of those it tore apart? Daniel did not blink. He stepped closer to the cage, the crowd gasping with every foot he took forward. The beast growled. A deep rumble that shook the air. Its chains rattled, sparks flashing as its claws scraped against the floor. Every alien flinched back, but not the human. He kept walking until he stood just a few feet away. I see hunger, Daniel said softly. His words confused the crowd. I see pain. I see fear, not rage. You all think this creature is a curse, but maybe it is only a prisoner, just like anyone would be if locked and beaten. The beast's glowing eyes locked onto him. Its roar thundered through the chamber, so loud that dust fell from the ceiling. Aliens screamed. Some fled out of the doors. Others raised their weapons, ready to strike if it broke loose. Yet Daniel did not move. His boots stayed firm on the ground. His gaze never wavered. In that moment, the hall was filled with two things: terror and silence. Terror from the aliens who saw death standing before them. Silence from the human who stood as if the beast's rage meant nothing. He tilted his head slightly, his hand lowering to his side, calm, open, no weapon drawn. The beast pressed against its chains, its nostrils flaring, breathing heavy as if testing him. Daniel whispered something too quiet for the crowd to hear. The monster stopped thrashing for just a second, tilting its head as if listening. The elders rose to their feet, furious. Human, step back. That thing will tear you apart. We have already decided. Sacrifice is the only way. Daniel slowly shook his head, his eyes never leaving the beast. Sacrifice is the coward's way. You want to kill what you do not understand. The beast roared again, this time louder. It slammed its body against the bars, the entire cage shaking, chains cracked, glowing sparks filled the hall. The crowd panicked. Some guards prepared to fire their weapons. Others begged the elders for orders. The alien people could not believe what they were seeing. One human standing before the beast as if death itself bowed to him. Daniel lifted his hand, fingers stretched, palm open. The entire hall held its breath. Would the monster snap its jaws and devour him? Or would it listen? The beast leaned forward, its eyes burning like fire. Its teeth bared, breath hot and foul through the gaps of the bars. For a heartbeat, it seemed ready to strike. The aliens shouted, "He will die! Step back!" But Daniel whispered again, his voice calm, his eyes steady. His hand stayed outstretched, inches away from the beast's snout. And then, the beast stopped roaring. The chains rattled no more. Its breathing slowed, and it stared at the human with something the aliens could not name. Something that looked too much like recognition. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar. The silence in the great hall felt heavier than stone. For a long moment, no one spoke. The beast had stopped thrashing in its cage, its glowing eyes fixed on the human standing before it. Daniel's hand was still raised, steady, open, fearless, to the aliens watching. This moment was impossible, for centuries. No one had stood so close to the devourer and lived. Now, one human stood inches away, not only alive but calm. The elders broke the silence with a voice like thunder. "Step back at once," the High Elder demanded. His robes swept the floor as he leaned forward, his long fingers pointing toward Daniel. "You dare approach a monster condemned by our ancestors? You insult the wisdom of our law." But Daniel did not step back. His eyes remained locked on the beast. His voice was quiet but firm. "I do not see a monster. I see a living being. It is starving. It is wounded. You call it cursed. But I see chains and cruelty. How can you expect peace from something you have only shown violence?" The crowd gasped. Some shouted insults. Others whispered fearfully. Their voices carried anger, but beneath the anger was uncertainty. No one had ever spoken against the elders. No one had ever questioned the sacrifice. A guard in shining armor stepped forward, spear in hand. "Human, you know nothing. This creature tore through 3 villages before it was captured. It crushed our warriors with its claws. It devoured children before their parents' eyes. You dare call it innocent?" His words struck the crowd like fire, and their fear turned into anger again. Daniel finally turned, facing the crowd, his voice cut through the noise. "Yes, I dare, because fear is not proof. Tell me, did anyone ever try to feed it, to heal it, to speak to it as something more than a monster? Or did you all raise your weapons the moment it appeared?" The guards hesitated. The crowd's noise wavered. For the first time, the question reached their hearts. The elders scowled, their faces twisting with rage. "You insult the dead who suffered under its claws," one elder shouted. "You shame the council with your foolish words. You dare place yourself above our law?" Daniel's jaw tightened. His voice remained calm, but every word carried steel. "I do not place myself above your law, but I do stand above blind fear. If your law demands killing without understanding, then your law is weakness disguised as strength." The beast shifted behind him, its glowing eyes following his movements. The chains rattled. But this time the creature did not roar. It only breathed heavily, watching, listening. The crowd could not believe it. Some whispered that the human must be using some forbidden power. Others said he was cursed himself. The High Elder rose from his seat, his voice like ice. "Enough. This trial is over. Guards, prepare the flames. The beast will be sacrificed before the next moonrise. This is the decree of the council." The guards moved quickly. Torches were brought forward, weapons drawn. The crowd cheered in relief, but Daniel did not move. Instead, he took one step closer to the cage, his shadow falling over the beast, his hand lowered, and in it appeared a small ration pack from his belt. He tore it open and held it toward the creature. The smell of food spread through the chamber. The beast sniffed, its nostrils flared, its glowing eyes flickered, and then, slowly, it lowered its head. Its great tongue brushed against the pack and snatched the food from the human's hand. The sound of it chewing filled the silence. The crowd froze, not in fear this time, but in disbelief. Daniel looked back at the council. "You see? It does not want blood. It wants life. It wants mercy. And if mercy is madness, then call me mad." The hall erupted. Some shouted for his arrest, some for the beast's execution, but others whispered differently. He fed it and it obeyed. It listened to him. Maybe the human is right. Fear cracked, and in its place came doubt. The High Elder slammed his staff, sparks of energy blasting across the stone floor. His voice shook with fury. "Enough! If this beast is allowed to live, it will bring doom upon us all, and this human, this reckless fool, dares to poison your minds with weakness." Daniel stood tall, his hand still resting lightly against the cage. The beast pressed its snout against the bars where his hand touched. The most feared predator of their world leaned into the human's presence like a tamed hound. "I will not allow you to kill it," Daniel said. His words were quiet, but the weight behind them struck like thunder. "If you want to destroy this creature, you will have to kill me first." The entire hall gasped. The alien people looked at him not with fear now, but with awe. The elders glared down with burning eyes, torn between rage and uncertainty. The beast breathed softly. Its massive frame crouched low as if waiting for the human's next command. For the first time in generations, the sacrifice was no longer certain. For the first time, the law was challenged by kindness. And for the first time, the beast of nightmares stood calm. Not because of chains, not because of fear, but because one human dared to defy them all. The great hall was no longer a place of order. It was a storm. The voices of the crowd clashed like thunder. Some shouted that the beast must be burned. Others whispered that the human had done the impossible. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons, ready to strike at both the human and the creature. But Daniel stood firm. His palm still pressed gently against the bars. His eyes never left the beast's glowing eyes. The beast moved again, its massive head lowering until its nose pressed against the metal. Its breath was hot. Its fangs glimmered in the torchlight. Every alien in the hall held their breath. They expected the end. They expected blood. They expected to see the human torn apart in one brutal snap. But instead, the beast only sniffed, its nostrils flaring. Daniel whispered something again, too soft for the others to hear. The monster let out a low rumble, not the roar of fury they all knew, but a sound closer to a growl of confusion. It tilted its head, blinking its burning eyes. The alien elders exchanged uneasy glances. This was not how the story was supposed to go. The beast was supposed to hate, to destroy, to resist. Instead, it was listening. Daniel pulled another ration pack from his belt. He slowly tore it open, the sound echoing in the tense silence. The smell of the food spread once again. The beast's eyes followed his hands. Its great tongue slipped between its teeth. Daniel held out the pack, calm, steady. He did not shake. He did not fear. The beast's jaws opened, wide enough to swallow him whole. The crowd screamed in warning. Some turned their faces away, unable to watch what they believed was certain death. The human was a fool, they thought. A fool who would be eaten before their eyes. But the jaws did not snap. Instead, the massive teeth closed carefully around the ration pack. With one bite it could have taken the human's arm. But it did not. It only took the food, chewing loudly, slowly, almost with satisfaction. When it finished, it licked its jaws and lowered its head again, waiting. The hall was silent, shock rippling like fire through the crowd. No one moved, no one spoke. All they could do was stare at the impossible. A beast that had killed hundreds now calmly accepted food from a human's hand. Daniel spoke, his voice carrying through the stillness. "You see, it can choose. It does not strike unless you strike it. It is not cursed. It is starving, broken, and afraid." The guards looked at each other, unsure. Some lowered their weapons slightly. Others kept their spears raised. The elders slammed their staffs, furious. "This is trickery," one shouted. "The beast only waits to strike. It lures you into weakness before it tears you apart." But the beast did not roar. It did not thrash. It leaned its massive body against the bars, pressing closer to the human as if seeking warmth, a predator seeking comfort. It was a sight that shattered everything the aliens thought they knew. Daniel slowly reached through the gap between the bars. The hall filled with a gasp so loud it sounded like a storm. "No!" the High Elder shouted. "Do not touch it! It will kill you!" But the human ignored them. His fingers brushed against the beast's rough hide, warm and scarred. The monster's body tensed for a moment, its muscles tightening, its teeth clenched, and the air shook with a deep growl. But then, it relaxed, its eyes closed halfway, its chest rose and fell in slow, calm breaths. The human petted the beast, gently, carefully, as one might soothe a frightened hound. The entire chamber was frozen. No one breathing, no one daring to blink. For generations they had believed this creature was nothing but death. And now, before their very eyes, it bowed its head under the touch of a human's hand. Daniel turned toward the council, his hand still on the beast. "You call this thing a monster," he said, his voice low but filled with strength. "But a monster does not know trust. A monster does not lower its head to kindness. Look at it. Look and tell me I am wrong." The elders' faces twisted in rage and denial. They pounded their staffs, their voices rising in anger. But their words were drowned by the whispers spreading through the crowd, the whispers of doubt, of wonder, of awe. "He touched it," one alien muttered. "And it did not kill him. It obeys him," said another. "It listens to him." "Impossible," whispered a third. "And yet, we see it with our own eyes." The High Elder's voice cracked through the noise. "Enough! This madness ends now. Guards, strike them both down if you must, but end this defiance." The guards hesitated. Their hands trembled on their weapons. For the first time, they were unsure if their law was right. Could they really kill a creature that had just shown restraint, trust, even peace? The beast let out a low rumble, sensing the threat. Its glowing eyes opened again. But this time, instead of rage, they burned with something different, something protective. Its head turned toward the guards, its claws flexed, ready to strike. But Daniel's hand pressed softly against its skin. "Easy," he whispered. "Not them, not yet." The beast stilled, obeying the human's quiet command. The crowd gasped again. Some dropped to their knees in disbelief. For in that moment, one truth became clear to all who watched. The human had done the impossible. The beast was no longer just a prisoner. It had made its first choice, and that choice was trust. The hall shook with whispers that no one could control. The beast had lowered its head under the human's touch. The creature that once ripped through armies was now calm, its breathing slow, its glowing eyes watching the human with something that looked too much like loyalty. The crowd did not know whether to cheer or scream. For the first time, fear was not the only thing in their hearts. There was doubt. The High Elder's voice rose above the chaos. His staff cracked against the floor, sparks of energy shooting into the air. His face twisted with rage. "This is heresy," he shouted. "This human defile our sacred law. He insults the memory of the dead who fell under the beast's claws. This is not mercy. It is betrayal." The other elders banged their staffs in agreement. Their robes swirled like storm clouds as they stood. "He seeks to poison your minds?" Another elder roared. "He would have us believe the monster is tame. But we know better. We know its hunger, its bloodlust, its endless rage." The crowd's voices turned into a storm. Some sided with the elders, crying for blood. Others whispered that maybe the human was right. Maybe the beast was not the demon they believed. Daniel did not step away from the beast. His hand still rested gently on its scarred hide. His voice cut through the noise, calm and sharp. "You are afraid, not wise. You call yourselves guardians of truth. But you are slaves to fear. You only see what you want to see, and you kill what you cannot understand." The guards froze where they stood, weapons in hand, torn between the command of their leaders and the impossible sight before their eyes. A beast once feared across worlds now obeyed a single human's quiet words. It was something no weapon, no chain, no law had ever achieved. The High Elder leaned forward, his eyes burning with hatred. "You dare mock our traditions? You dare call us cowards before our people?" Daniel finally turned to face him, his hand never leaving the beast. "If the truth sounds like mockery, then perhaps your traditions are weaker than you believe." His voice did not rise in anger, yet every word struck the chamber like iron. The elders hissed, their staffs pounding again and again. "Enough!" The High Elder thundered. "Guards, end this madness. Destroy the beast and arrest this human for treason." The guards hesitated, their spears shaking in their hands. None moved forward. None wanted to be the first to test the beast now. For the beast was no longer thrashing like a monster. It was crouched low beside the human, its massive claws flexing, its glowing eyes locked on the guards. A low growl rolled from its throat, not of blind rage but of warning. The people gasped. The beast was protecting him, protecting the human against its captors. The sight sent shivers down every spine in the room. Daniel's voice was steady as stone. "Do you not see? It chooses not to harm me. It chooses to trust. That is proof enough that it is more than a weapon, more than a curse." The High Elder slammed his staff one final time. His voice was sharp as a blade. "You speak of choice, human, but choice means nothing if it is born of trickery. That beast has killed too many. It must die. This is the law, and no outsider will change it. Daniel stepped forward, placing himself fully between the beast and the guards. His eyes never wavered. "Then your law is wrong," he said. His voice was not loud, but it carried through the hall like thunder. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some cheered, others screamed. The elders ordered again and again for the beast to be destroyed. But still, the guards did not move. Their hands trembled, their hearts uncertain. Then the impossible happened. With a sudden crack, one of the beast's chains snapped. The sound echoed like a storm. The crowd screamed in terror. The elders shouted for the guards to strike. But the beast did not lunge at the people. It did not kill. It did not rage. Instead, it moved to Daniel's side, standing tall, its massive body towering over him like a living wall. The guards raised their spears, ready to attack. The crowd shouted for the flames. But Daniel lifted his hand, and the beast froze in place, obedient, calm. Its burning eyes turned not toward the crowd, but toward the council. For the first time, the elders stepped back. The fear they once commanded in their people now reflected in their own eyes. They saw not a monster chained, but a creature choosing to protect a human, choosing not to destroy. Daniel's voice rose again, calm but sharp. "You said it could never be controlled. You said it would never stop killing. You said it deserved only death. And yet here it stands, by choice, not by chains." The crowd roared with divided voices. Some begged the council to listen. Others begged them to strike. But one thing was now certain. Nothing would ever be the same. The High Elder raised his staff one final time, his face twisted with fury. "Then let it be known. If the beast is not destroyed tonight, it will be the doom of us all. If you side with it, human, then you are already condemned." Daniel stood taller, his hand on the beast's side, the creature looming silently at his back. "Then condemn me," he said. "But history will remember who truly brought doom, those who killed in fear, or the one who dared to show mercy." The hall shook with voices, fear, anger, awe, and above it all stood a single human and a beast, side by side, defying a council's decree. The battlefield was fire and thunder. Smoke curled through broken streets, buildings lay shattered, and the cries of the wounded echoed beneath the roar of cannons. The raiders' massive war machine advanced like a moving mountain of steel. Its glowing cannons spat fire that tore through walls and bodies alike. Soldiers stumbled back, powerless against its power. But then, above the chaos, came the roar of the beast, a sound that shook the battlefield, a sound that silenced even the thunder of enemy fire. The great creature leapt forward, its claws tearing furrows in the stone as it charged. Daniel ran at its side, small compared to its towering form. Yet his presence was steady, guiding, unshaken. The raiders turned their cannons on the beast. Blinding light filled the air. Explosions cracked across its hide. The monster staggered but did not fall. Its eyes burned brighter. Its muscles coiled with fury. Daniel shouted, "Hold! Don't fall! Together, we fight!" His voice, tiny against the storm of war, reached the beast's ears. The creature roared again and surged forward, smashing into the war machine with earth-shaking force. Metal screamed, sparks flew. The ground quaked as claw met steel. The beast's fangs sank into the machine's armored plating, tearing chunks of blackened metal free. The raiders inside screamed, their weapons firing wildly. But Daniel did not back away. He leapt onto the machine's lower hull, plasma blasts scorching the air around him. His blades slashed into its joints, sparks flying. His voice shouted again, "Here! Tear it open!" The beast obeyed, its claws ripped deep into the machine's side where the human struck. Together, man and monster tore through what no army could break. The war machine convulsed, explosions tearing through its core. Fire engulfed its frame, and with one final roar, the beast ripped the machine in half, hurling its burning wreckage into the ruins. The battlefield froze, raiders dropped their weapons, their courage broken. They had come expecting easy victory, but now their greatest weapon lay in ruins, destroyed not by an army, but by the bond between a single human and the beast they had all feared. The soldiers of the city let out a cheer that shook the sky. Their voices rose like a tide. "The beast fights for us. The human has tamed it. We are saved." The raiders fled into the smoke, their ships retreating. Their cries filled with terror of the monster they could no longer claim as theirs to fear. The battle was over, the city still stood, though scarred, and at the gates, standing tall amidst fire and ruin, was the human and his beast. The creature's glowing eyes softened, its massive head lowering to rest beside Daniel, its breathing heavy, wounded but alive. Daniel placed his hand against its hide, whispering softly, "You did well, my friend." The beast rumbled low, almost like a purr, pressing closer to him. It had fought, not for chains, not for survival, but for the human it trusted. From the tower, the council descended, their faces pale, their robes covered in ash. The High Elder stepped forward, his staff trembling in his hand. For once, his voice carried no thunder, only disbelief. This should not be possible," he whispered. "It was a monster, and yet, it saved us all." Daniel turned his eyes toward them. His voice was calm, but sharp as iron. "You were wrong, you called it cursed, you chained it, you demanded its sacrifice, but it was never a monster, it was only what you made it, and when someone finally showed it kindness, it chose to be more than you ever believed." The crowd gathered, their voices rose again. But this time not in fear, they shouted with awe, with wonder, with something close to reverence. They chanted the human's name. They cried for the beast, no longer calling it devourer, but guardian, protector, friend. The council tried to speak, but their words were drowned by the people. For the old law had shattered with the chains. The new truth was carved in fire and blood for all to see. Even the darkest beast could choose light if given the chance. The beast lifted its head high, its roar rolling across the city once more. But this time, the people did not cover their ears. They cheered with it. They raised their voices to join the sound. For the roar was no longer one of rage. It was the sound of victory, of survival, of trust. Daniel stood beside it, his figure small but unshaken, his voice low, carried on the wind. "You saw a monster to be sacrificed," he said. "But I saw a friend waiting to be understood." And in that moment, a new legend was born. A legend of a human who defied fear, and a beast who chose loyalty over rage. Together, they rewrote the law of an entire world. Together, they proved that kindness could tame even the darkest storm. The city shook as the first explosion struck the outer wall. The crowd inside the great hall screamed. Rushing toward the exits, soldiers ran through the corridors, their boots hammering the stone as war horns echoed in the distance. The raiders had come with fire and steel, and already their weapons were tearing through the city's defenses. The council stood frozen, their voices drowned by the chaos. For the first time in generations, they were powerless. Their laws could not stop the enemy's ships outside. Their words could not shield the people from the fire raining from the sky. They looked to the guards for answers, but the guards were already rushing to their posts. In the center of the hall, the beast crouched low, its eyes burned brighter, not with blind rage but with purpose. It rumbled deep in its chest, the sound echoing like a war drum. Daniel stood beside it, his hand pressed firmly against its scarred hide. His calm voice cut through the storm. "Not them," he whispered. "The enemy is out there. Can you fight with me?" The beast's head lifted. Its nostrils flared as if it could already smell the raider's blood. A roar thundered from its throat, shaking the entire hall. Dust rained from the ceiling, torches flickered. The aliens flinched back, covering their ears. But Daniel did not move. He only nodded. "Then let's show them." The doors of the hall burst open again. Soldiers rushed inside, their armor scorched from battle. "The raiders have breached the gates," one shouted. "We cannot hold them much longer." The High Elder raised his staff, panic finally cracking his voice. "Release the flames! Burn the beast before it turns on us." But the guards no longer listened. Their eyes shifted to the human and the monster standing at his side. The sight was burned into their minds. The beast obeyed him, the beast trusted him, and perhaps, just perhaps, the beast could save them. Daniel stepped forward, his hand still resting on the creature's hide. His voice was calm, steady. "Open the gates. Let it fight. You cannot hold the city alone. But with this beast, you have a chance." The guards hesitated, the council screamed. But another explosion tore through the walls. A chunk of stone crashed to the floor, nearly crushing the crowd. The choice was no longer theirs to delay. Survival demanded action. With a reluctant nod, one commander barked an order. The chains binding the beast's last leg were struck with a plasma blade. Sparks flew. The final restraint clattered to the ground. The beast stood free, for a heartbeat. The hall froze in fear, waiting for it to tear them apart. But it did not. Instead, it turned toward the shattered doors. Its claws gouged deep into the stone. Its muscles tensed, and with a roar that split the sky, it charged into the battle. The ground trembled with every step of its massive frame. Daniel ran at its side, his figure small beside the towering monster. Yet the people watching saw something more powerful than any weapon. Man and beast moving as one. Outside, chaos reigned. Raiders swarmed the streets in armored suits, their weapons spitting fire into the air. Ships hovered above, launching blasts of plasma into the city towers. Aliens screamed as buildings collapsed. Soldiers fought desperately. But the enemy pushed harder, stronger, closer. Then the beast entered the battlefield. Its roar cut through the noise of war. The raiders froze in terror, their weapons shaking in their hands. They had heard the stories of this monster, the destroyer of worlds, but they had never expected it to stand beside a human. With a swipe of its claws, the beast tore through a squad of raiders, armor shattered like glass. Their screams were drowned by the sound of cracking stone. With a single leap, it landed atop a raider ship. Its weight crushed the hull, its jaws tearing into the metal. The ship exploded in flames, lighting the sky. The soldiers of the city cheered. Their fear melted into awe. They fought harder, rallying behind the monster they once called cursed. Through it all, Daniel ran at its side. His voice rose above the battle. "Here! Strike here!" he shouted, guiding the beast with his words. The creature obeyed, tearing down barricades, smashing enemy lines, its eyes never straying from the human's figure in the chaos. The council stood high in their tower, watching in disbelief. Their sacred law lay in ruins before their very eyes. For the beast was no longer their enemy. It was their savior, and the human they condemned was the only one it trusted. But even as victory seemed within reach, the raiders unleashed their greatest weapon. A massive war machine rolled through the gates, its armor black as night. Its cannons glowed with deadly light. The ground shook as it advanced, scattering soldiers like insects. The beast snarled, its claws dug deep into the stone. Its body lowered, ready to strike. Daniel stood before it, his voice steady. "This is it. We stand together. Trust me." The beast roared, the sound shaking the heavens. And with the human at its side, it charged. The battlefield was fire and thunder. Smoke curled through broken streets. Buildings lay shattered, and the cries of the wounded echoed beneath the roar of cannons. The raiders' massive war machine advanced like a moving mountain of steel. Its glowing cannons spat fire that tore through walls and bodies alike. Soldiers stumbled back, powerless against its power. But then, above the chaos, came the roar of the beast, a sound that shook the battlefield, a sound that silenced even the thunder of enemy fire. The great creature leapt forward, its claws tearing furrows in the stone as it charged. Daniel ran at its side, small compared to its towering form. Yet his presence was steady, guiding, unshaken. The raiders turned their cannons on the beast. Blinding light filled the air. Explosions cracked across its hide. The monster staggered but did not fall. Its eyes burned brighter. Its muscles coiled with fury. Daniel shouted, "Hold! Don't fall! Together, we fight!" His voice, tiny against the storm of war, reached the beast's ears. The creature roared again and surged forward, smashing into the war machine with earth-shaking force. Metal screamed, sparks flew. The ground quaked as claw met steel. The beast's fangs sank into the machine's armored plating, tearing chunks of blackened metal free. The raiders inside screamed, their weapons firing wildly. But Daniel did not back away. He leapt onto the machine's lower hull, plasma blasts scorching the air around him. His blades slashed into its joints, sparks flying. His voice shouted again, "Here! Tear it open!" The beast obeyed, its claws ripped deep into the machine's side where the human struck. Together, man and monster tore through what no army could break. The war machine convulsed, explosions tearing through its core, fire engulfed its frame, and with one final roar, the beast ripped the machine in half, hurling its burning wreckage into the ruins. The battlefield froze, raiders dropped their weapons, their courage broken. They had come expecting easy victory, but now their greatest weapon lay in ruins, destroyed not by an army, but by the bond between a single human and the beast they had all feared. The soldiers of the city let out a cheer that shook the sky. Their voices rose like a tide. The beast fights for us. The human has tamed it. We are saved. The raiders fled into the smoke, their ships retreating, their cries filled with terror of the monster they could no longer claim as theirs to fear. The battle was over. The city still stood, though scarred, and at the gates, standing tall amidst fire and ruin, was the human and his beast. The creature's glowing eyes softened, its massive head lowering to rest beside Daniel, its breathing heavy, wounded but alive. Daniel placed his hand against its hide, whispering softly, "You did well, my friend." The beast rumbled low, almost like a purr, pressing closer to him. It had fought, not for chains, not for survival, but for the human it trusted. From the tower, the council descended, their faces pale, their robes covered in ash. The high elder stepped forward, his staff trembling in his hand. For once, his voice carried no thunder, only disbelief. This should not be possible," he whispered. "It was a monster, and yet, it saved us all." Daniel turned his eyes toward them. His voice was calm, but sharp as iron. "You were wrong, you called it cursed, you chained it, you demanded its sacrifice, but it was never a monster, it was only what you made it, and when someone finally showed it kindness, it chose to be more than you ever believed." The crowd gathered, their voices rose again, but this time not in fear. They shouted with awe, with wonder, with something close to reverence. They chanted the human's name. They cried for the beast, no longer calling it devourer, but guardian, protector, friend. The council tried to speak, but their words were drowned by the people. For the old law had shattered with the chains. The new truth was carved in fire and blood for all to see. Even the darkest beast could choose light if given the chance. The beast lifted its head high, its roar rolling across the city once more. But this time, the people did not cover their ears. They cheered with it. They raised their voices to join the sound. For the roar was no longer one of rage. It was the sound of victory, of survival, of trust. Daniel stood beside it, his figure small but unshaken, his voice low, carried on the wind. "You saw a monster to be sacrificed," he said. "But I saw a friend waiting to be understood." And in that moment, a new legend was born. A legend of a human who defied fear, and a beast who chose loyalty over rage. Together, they rewrote the law of an entire world. Together, they proved that kindness could tame even the darkest storm.